Hello, class. Hope you're having a very good Friday or weekend, as the case may be. We have 1 week, if you're watching this on Friday, until your first speeches need to be turned in. So a lot of work going to be happening in the next few days. Hope you're ready. And we'll be talking about expectations for those first speeches coming up. But we're going to talk an awful lot today about outlining. Your presentation outline that you will turn in with your recorded presentation of your speech comprises half of your grade. In fact, for all the speeches that you'll be doing in class, half of your grade will come from the speech outline that you turn in, and then the other half of the grade will come from your delivery in the presentation itself. So I have had students think, you know what, I'm just going to wing it. I'll go in, I'll be fantastic. She won't have a clue and I'll make an A. Well, if you don't have a good outline to turn in with it, the best you could get is 50. But honestly, if you don't practice that way, I doubt you're even going to get that 50. So you need to do the outlines and you need to practice your delivery for your speech. Is it a lot of work? It is, but I know you can do it. It's going to be just fine. Now, if you were in class this past Tuesday, we started talking about outlining, and I have an example of an outline that I'm going to pull up here. I want to show you how we need to outline your speeches. So hopefully with your informative speech, you already know your topic, you have your specific purpose, you have your central idea. If you don't by this time, please contact me. We'll work it through, but I think most of you do. So let's take a look at an outline. Let me share my screen. And there it is. This is a speech about chili peppers, an informative speech about chili peppers. Everybody likes chili peppers. I do anyway. So when you do your speech and you prepare your outline, the presentation outline that you'll need to be turning in, this is what it should look like. This is an example. Luckily for you, if you forget some things after you watch this video, I have saved a copy of this example outline in the syllabus. It's in week 4. It's called the chili pepper outline. So if you need to see this again, you can easily open it up and kind of use this as a reference. So at the top left-hand side, as we do with all the papers, your name, the class, the date, and see where it says YouTube link goes here. If you're going to be turning in a video presentation of your speech, and for our first speech, that's what we're going to do, this is where you're going to copy and paste the YouTube link so I can watch it. It's going to go right up there, first thing. You don't have to bold it, you don't have to capitalize it. I just put it that way so you'd see that's where the YouTube link goes. Now for your second and third speeches that we'll be doing in class, just don't worry about the YouTube link part. But for the first speech, want to make sure you put that link in there. Otherwise, I'll only be able to grade the outline, won't be able to grade you actually doing the speech. So make sure you put that in there for the first outline. All right, so good start. We are going to then list the specific purpose of the speech. And remember, that is basically the general purpose of the speech plus specifically what you're going to be talking about. So in this case, with my chili pepper speech, we will put specific purpose, colon, and you will put it like that, to inform my audience about chili peppers. For you, it would be to inform my audience about whatever you're going to be talking about, whatever your specific topic is. Then you're going to skip a line. The next line will be the central idea, and you will put central idea, colon, and then write out the sentence that is your central idea, your thesis statement. In this case, it's chili peppers are a spicy food with an interesting history and many other uses besides eating. So if I just said that and said, this is what my speech is about, you'd already have a pretty good idea of what I would be presenting in my speech. So that's everything at the top. Whenever you turn in a presentation outline for a speech, you need to put the specific purpose at the top, the central idea right after it. Then we're actually going to put all of the words of the speech have to be outlined. Every sentence that you plan to say in the speech has to be a part of the outline. So there's no going off script. There is no winging it. I need to make sure that you planned everything that you're going to be saying in your speech. So every sentence needs to be a part of the outline. This lets me know you put the work into it, you did the research, and you organized it well. The first thing we always say in a speech is the introduction. And we will start with Roman numeral 1 as your first sentence. And as you see, the very first thing I'm going to say in my speech, this is my opening. Imagine your mouth burning like wildfire, your eyes squirting and uncontrollable tears, your eyes squirting out uncontrollable tears, and your face red and sweating profusely. Are you sick? No, you just took a bite of a screaming hot chili pepper. See, everything I'm going to be saying in my speech needs to be in the outline. Now, this isn't going to be what I use later to give my speech. This helps me organize all the sentences. Notice every point and subpoint, those A's and B's, is a complete sentence. Sometimes you can have sentence fragments, but most of the time, every point, every main point, every subpoint, and if you have subpoints, those 1 and 2 that go under the A and the B, it needs to be a complete sentence. Complete sentence has a subject and a verb, hopefully some other parts of the sentence in there too, but at least a subject and a verb, and punctuation. So if you just find yourself putting phrases down, I'm going to count off because everything needs to be a complete sentence. So continuing going, part 1 of my introduction is that first sentence. Then I go on to part 2. My own desire for spicy meals led me to investigate why I get red in the face and salivate at the mere thought of eating a spicy chili. Main point 3 of my introduction, I've discovered there's a lot more to chili peppers than I've ever imagined. And then 4, today I'd like to share with you what I've learned about the history of chili peppers, why they can be so spicy, what to do when you consume a too hot chili pepper, and some of the ways that peppers are used other than in food. So that's basically, at the end, my central idea kind of expanded a little bit. But you notice when we talked about introductions in class, have to get your attention at first. And that's why I said, imagine your mouth burning like wildfire. Once you start visualizing in your head what I'm going to be talking about, that helps to get attention. My own desire for spicy meals. Why am I talking about this? Why is this interesting to me? Explaining it right up front. And then showing my goodwill. I've discovered there's a lot more to chili peppers than I'd imagined. And today I'd like to share with you, makes me friendly, what I've learned about the history of chili peppers. And that's my central idea coming out. So introduction, we're going to start with 1, 2, 3, 4, or however sentences you've got. Where did I do my, are you sick? No, you just took a bite of screaming hot chili pepper. Those are subpoints that go under that first point. Then we move on to the body, where all of the Roman numerals, we start over again. Is it weird? Yes, it is, but that's kind of how we do it. The introduction, the body, and the conclusion all have their own set of Roman numerals. It's kind of like doing an outline for a report, but it has its own little quirks, and this is one of them. So when we move to the body of the speech, we're going to label it body in the middle of the page. And then we're going to start with Roman numeral 1, which is our first main point. Remember, we've talked about the main points. If I move down, you see, hey, we've got main point 2, and then we've got main point 3. Do I have main point 4? Yes, right there. Because remember, I talked about 4 things I would be talking about in my speech, where I said, today I'd like to share with you, let's see if I can highlight that. There we go. The history of chili peppers, 1, why they can be so spicy, 2, what to do when you consume a too hot chili pepper, 3, and some of the ways that peppers are used other than in food, 4. So each of those forms one of my main points, and everything that I plan to say, so all of the defending bits, the evidence that I'm going to show, the stuff that pads out my speech, all of the filler that I use to defend what I'm saying, to explain what I'm talking about, that all is outlined as well. And if I just read down my outline, you can hear what my speech is. Everything you plan to say should be in the outline in a complete sentence. So starting with Roman numeral 1 under my body, my speech would sound something like this. Chili peppers have a long and fascinating history. According to the Encyclopedia Britannica, the scientific name of the chili pepper is capsicum, and it's different from black pepper, whose scientific name is Piper nigrum. Black pepper was first cultivated in Asia and was prized in the West as early as the time of the Roman Empire. Chili peppers originated in South America more than 5,000 years ago and spread to Central America, Mexico, and the Caribbean. Chili peppers didn't become known to the rest of the world until after Columbus came to the Western Hemisphere in the 1490s. As stated in the Cambridge World History of Food, within 50 years after Columbus returned to Spain with sampled plants, chili peppers were being grown in coastal areas from Africa to Asia. From there, they spread around the globe. Carolyn Dilley and Susan Belsinger, authors of the Chili Pepper book, estimate that nearly 25% of the world's adult population uses chili peppers as a regular part of their daily diet. Did you see how that was? That's my whole first main point section of my speech. Goes straight down. Now, let's take a couple looks at some things. So the main points come out first. This lets people what we're going to be hearing next. Whenever something was mentioned and it didn't come from my brain, it needs to have a verbal citation, and this is how you're going to do it. For example, this information, the scientific name of the chili pepper is capsicum, and it's different from black pepper, whose scientific name is Piper nigrum. I didn't know that myself. I did not name the chili pepper or black pepper, so I have to say where I got that information from. So here it is. I'm going to write it right into my speech according to the Encyclopedia Britannica, the scientific name of chili pepper. So I'm letting people know that's where I got this part of the information. And actually that citation can carry all the way through here, right? So then I get to my second sub point, that they didn't become known to the rest of the world until after Columbus came to the Western Hemisphere in the 1490s. And here, all of this bit of B comes from the Cambridge World History of Food. That's where I got this information from. So, as stated in the Cambridge World History of Food, lets you know this is where I got this part of this information. And then, because this bit from the chili pepper book only has to do with this little sub point number 3, I'm kind of keeping that one by itself. Carolyn Dilley and Susan Belsinger, the authors of the Chili Pepper book, estimate that nearly 25% of the world's above. Okay, you're seeing how that works. I hope so. Now, between main points, so like main point number 1's right here, and then moving to my second main point, which is the pleasure and pain involved with eating chili peppers comes from a chemical called capsaicin. We want to put a transition sentence. A transition sentence basically moves us from one point to another, and we do it verbally so people can know we're moving from one point to another. If you're going to write in a transition, this is how you do it. You put it in parentheses between the 2 main points that you're going to be transitioning from and to. So as I move from the bit about the history to the bit about how the spiciness works, I'm going to put this transition sentence, and see it says transition in capital letters with the colon. Now that we know a bit about the history of chili peppers, let's see why they can put such a fire in our bellies. So I'm going to say that it's going to be between the main point 1 and the main point 2, and it lets you know I'm moving from this section of the speech to this information in the speech. And it does have the parentheses and transition colon full sentence. All right. So my second main point, the pleasure and pain involved with eating chili peppers comes from a chemical. Boy, it's hard to do. And notice when I've been doing the speech, and every now and then I kind of bobble a little bit, you don't just stop and go, can I start over? No, just recognize, oh, I did it. Keep going. Just, and it's hard to do. We're kind of conditioned to stop everything and make a big deal or be like, apologize, I'm so sorry. I'll get back to normal. Don't even acknowledge. Just, for example, if I were going to bobble it again, the pleasure and pain involved with eating chili peppers comes from a chemical called capsaicin. Capsaicin is concentrated in the pepper's veins and seeds. As P.W. Boslin states in the book, Spices, Herbs, and Edible Fungi, the intensity of a chili pepper's power can be measured in 2 ways. So, I bobbled a little bit. You just kind of stop, keep going. Honestly, they'll notice. Nobody will laugh because, shoot, we've all been there. But it will not be a big deal if you don't make it a big deal. If you're nervous, you might be, compelled to, and by misspeaking or bobbling a word, it might, I'm so nervous and now I'm so embarrassed. The more you make it nervous about yourself, the more harder it's going to be to keep going. So the thing to do is practice a lot, but then just tell yourself, you know what? I'm probably going to bobble something. And like I'm doing right now, I do a lot of speeches, and it doesn't mean that I'm not going to misspeak a word when I'm talking, but you just keep going. Most of the people will not notice, but even if they do, it's not a big thing. The only thing that I think people will notice is if, 1, you make a big deal out of it, or 2, if you cuss and go, that's a problem. So don't do that. Oh goodness, my nose itches. And don't do that while you're speaking too. Just let your nose itch. If you happen to sneeze, come back to your speech. So you notice, you just go through all the sentences you plan to say in the speech, get outlined. In this main point 2, we have the main point. We have A, B, C, and D as our subpoints. And then even in B, we've got 2 subpoints, and we've got subpoints. So that basically, even when we're talking about here, this method uses trained testers to measure peppers in Scoville heat units, but this test is subjective. That's all about how we measure the intensity of a chili pepper. So we go from the main point to a subpoint, to a subpoint, and then to a subpoint. Then we go back to our subpoint again. The most widely used measure today is the high performance liquid chromatography test, or HPLC. This test also gives results in Scoville heat units, but the procedure is more objective. So depending upon how much you want to go into detail, you just keep going in there. Now, remember in Tuesday's class when we said, you can't just have a letter A under your main point, one little sentence, and then just go on to your next main point. One sentence is not enough evidence or defense or information to share about a main point. You have to always have at least 2. So anytime you're going to drop to a subpoint or a subpoint, you need to have 2 of those. There's no such thing as an A without a B on this kind of outline. There's no such thing as a 1 without a 2 in this kind of outline. If you just have a 1 and there's nothing else to say about it, that probably means that 1 really isn't necessary. It could be incorporated into the point above it probably, or just find more information, something else you really can share if you're insistent on using that bit. So if you have trouble, if you're like, I really want to use this point, but I've gotten to this thing and I can't figure out a 2 or a B or a little letter B. I have a little letter A and I need a little letter B, but I can't think of something. Text me, call me, email me, we'll figure something out. So that we have our subpoints A, B, C, D, and it's just like a regular outline. By getting down to the subpoint, the hottest pepper on record is the orange habanero. It's been rated as high as 300,000 Scoville heat units. This pepper is so powerful, even touching it can lead some people to have an allergic reaction. The mildest pepper, rated at 0 Scoville heat units, is the standard green bell pepper, which we see every day in the grocery store. Now look, we go right into our 3rd main point. If you come into contact with a hot pepper, you should know how to counteract its effects. Now, remember between main point 1 and main point 2, we put a transition sentence. Perfectly legit. Here, we didn't. We just go straight from talking about capsaicin and how the heat of peppers works right into, if you come into contact with a hot pepper, you should know how to counter its effects. That's because these 2 main points are very closely related. So I don't necessarily need to bring people along with a special transition sentence. So you can, if the main points you're talking about are not so related to each other, if you kind of need to say, okay, I've been talking about that, next I'm going to be talking about this. In this case, we really didn't need to, because we're talking about how hot they are. And while we're talking about how hot they are, now we can move to, if you deal with a hot pepper, here's some things you should know how you can counteract the effects of dealing with a super hot chili pepper. And then you just keep going. One thing that will not help is rinsing your mouth out with water. As Dave DeWitt explains in the Chili Pepper Encyclopedia, capsaicin is not soluble in water. So even if you drink a gallon of ice water, it's not going to wash away the burning sensation in your mouth. According to the Chili Pepper Institute at New Mexico State University, and there is such a thing, the best solution is to consume a dairy product such as milk or yogurt. They contain a substance that strips capsaicin away from the cells on the interior of the mouth. This is why some hot foods are served with yogurt sauce. If you burn your skin from contact with a pepper, the Institute recommends cleaning the skin with rubbing alcohol and then soaking it with milk. Above all, there are 2 points to remember. Always wear gloves when you cut a hot pepper, and never rub your eyes while you're working with a hot pepper. Now look, here I have put a transition between the main point 3 section and the main point 4 section. So here we've got the parentheses and the transition. Although chili peppers are prized above all for their flavor they add to food, they have other benefits as well. And then I go to my main point 4. Remember, we talked about how chili peppers are used. They're used in personal protection products as well as for medical purposes. So then I talk about the personal protection products, which pepper sprays, and their medical purposes is B, how they use for their medicinal properties. Blah, blah, blah. I am babbling a lot today. Jack Challam, the author of the Nutrition Reporter, says there have been more than 1,300 medical studies on capsaicin, the active ingredient in peppers. Moderate doses of chili peppers can aid digestion, reduce hypertension, improve circulation, and help dissolve blood clots. Preliminary research by Professor Kenji Okajima suggests that a combination of chili peppers and soybeans can promote hair growth and might even hold promise as a cure to baldness. So we've gone through my body's main points 1, 2, 3, and 4, and all of the defending information in them. Everything I plan to say in my speech is in there. So now we come to the conclusion. We're going to label it like we've done the introduction and the body before. It's going to be centered. And look, we're starting over with 1 and 2 and 3 again for our main points. Ta-da! Oops, let me do this real quick. Boop, boop, there we go. I'm going to save that. Click. So when we get to the conclusion section, remember the things we want to do. We want to basically remind people of what they've just heard. We want to go out with some more goodwill, and we want to leave people with a good note to end on. So we've got my 3 sentences I plan to say in my conclusion, and they are, in closing. See, that signals we're about to end. It's difficult to imagine our lives without the spice added by chili peppers. From their origins in South America to their current popularity around the world, peppers have been used not only to flavor our food, but also to improve our health and personal safety. See, I'm reminding you of a couple of things we talked about in the speech. While it remains to be seen whether peppers can actually cure baldness, we can be sure this ancient plant will continue to find new uses in our modern age. You go out with that note to grow on, basically. Ta-da! That's the end of my speech. After the conclusion, I do want you to put a bibliography in. Now, unfortunately for this, I don't have the bibliography written out. It would be in a section like the other sections are. Bibliography is going to be centered. And you want to mention all the sources that you've listed in your speech according to their MLA citations. Hopefully, if you're writing reports or doing other kinds of papers right now, you're using MLA, and just put the citation in a list, boom, 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 in your bibliography. I do expect you to have at least two sources that you cite in your speech. I should make it more, but right now, since I know you're writing things super fast, you know, it might be tough. Now for your other speeches, I am going to require you to have more than 2, but I need you to have at least 2 sources for all the information in your speech, hopefully more than that. And then I expect to see 2 citations listed at least in your bibliography. If you don't know what MLA is, or you haven't had the English yet to be writing a term paper or writing a report, text me, call me, we'll set something up and we'll figure out how I can share that information with you, okay? So ta-da, your outline should resemble this one. It should be at least be in the order and in the style that this one is. And like I said, this exact example is in the syllabus under week 4. So if you need to look at this again and kind of see how I did this one, it's right in there. All right. So this is an example. I'm going to stop sharing this one. And it's time to go back to our friends in the slideshow. Wow, didn't mean to do this one. Hold on, let me see if I can do the display. There we go. Oops, hold on. This is not good. Let me share first. That would be helpful, don't you think? See, it's a good thing I'm not using this as a speech. We all make mistakes. You just keep going. All right. Hopefully you're not just like, ugh, this is not good. Dang, why does it keep doing this? There we go. So when you're outlining your speech, there are 2 types of outlines that you're going to be using. The first one is the preparation outline, which we've already been talking about. That's the detailed outline that's developed during the speech development process that includes all the parts of your speech. It has the introduction, the body, the conclusion, but it also lists the specific purpose. You've got your central idea. It's got the bibliography. It has all the sentences you plan to say in your speech outlined properly in it. Then we have a speaking outline. This is an outline of just phrases and hints that you're going to use to jog the speaker's memory, to jog your memory that you're going to use when you're actually giving a speech. If you stand up there with your full preparation outline, all the words up there, so you're talking, you're looking at people, and then you look down at your paper to kind of jog your memory, you're going to see a whole lot of information there. And it's going to take you a second to figure out, okay, where am I? And okay, there I am. That's what I say next. Then you're going to go. And if you need to look down again, where am I? It's there. You just need a few phrases, guideline kind of hints to tell you where you are so that you're not looking down trying to figure out where you are and then go up again. This does mean you do have to practice so that all you need are those phrases and hints. If you have your whole preparation outline up there, first of all, a lot of people are like, she won't notice. I'll make it super small, but I'll put it in tiny words and then I can almost read it. We'll be able to tell. Everybody will be able to tell that you're basically reading your speech. So don't pretend like, oh, I'm going to be so good at this, she won't know. I always can tell. And I will put in your comments, I can see you are reading your speech. Or I can see you have the presentation outline and you're having trouble figuring out where you are when you look at your notes. So it's kind of obvious. Practice, 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 so that all you need are the hints and tips that will keep you going when you're giving your speech. So let me see. For preparation outlines, remember, we start with the specific purpose and the central idea that's listed at the top. The introduction, the body, the transition sentences, the conclusion, and bibliography are all labeled. And the main points and the supporting evidence are all listed as full sentences within the outline. When it comes to your bibliography, remember, all the source materials you are citing, or the information for all the source materials that's being cited in your speech, everything there needs a listing in your bibliography, listed with their proper MLA citations. If you're not familiar, Google MLA bibliography citations, and you'll get information. And if you have trouble with that, just Google Purdue Writing Lab. They will take you step by step through a bibliography. It's perfectly good. All right, so a speaking outline, only you will see them. I will not ask to look at your speaking outline. It could say anything. I will not know. Now, if it says the whole thing up there, I will know. Why? Because I can see that you're reading. I can see when you're looking down too much to try to figure out where you are, it becomes obvious. You can use note cards. You can use folded paper, use whatever you want, but only you will see them. So you don't have to worry if it's scribbled, handwritten. If you rewrite some of your speech, you can, and there it's perfectly good. You really want to focus on the phrases and not put your whole speech on there. I can't say this enough. And then when you're practicing, you might take a look at your delivery. And if you're like, you know what, I really should pause here, or I think I'm talking too fast. Maybe I'm speeding up at this part because I'm almost toward the end and I can't wait to finish this speech. You might write some notes in the margins or little notes here and there that tell you, pause here, or, louder here, or slow or fast, to kind of give you some hints of what to do to make the most of your speech delivery. So before we go to delivery, let's stop the share, and I'm going to show you kind of what the difference then is between a preparation outline and a speech outline. And I did it again. Hold on, kitties. Let me share my screen again. Yikes. So here we go. All right, so remember the chili peppers. How could you forget? Here's just a portion of the preparation outline. Remember, here's main point 1. Chili peppers have a long and fascinating history. We have our main points A and B. We have the subpoints. We have the subpoints A and B. We have the subpoints 1 and 2 and 1, 2, and 3. If we were looking at a speaking outline, here's just the phrases that I would use to kind of jog my memory while I'm talking about it. History. First thing we're going to talk about is history. That reminds me, chili peppers have a long and fascinating history. I wanted to next talk about the scientific name, so I put scientific. Scientific name of chili pepper is capsicum, which is different from black pepper, whose scientific name is Piper nigrum. And see, black pepper, I put the little notes there, BP, came from Asia first. So that reminds me, black pepper was first cultivated in Asia and was prized in the West as early as the time of the Roman Empire. My number 2 tells me, remember, CP chili peppers originated in South America more than 5,000 years ago, and it spread to South America. See, I got my little notes there. If you practice enough, all you need are these little words and phrases to kind of prompt you and move you along. But you see, it would be much easier if you were giving a speech to look down and look in this kind of information and figure out where you are, than if you look down in this bit and try to go, okay, where am I? I just mentioned about South America. Okay, here it is. Chili peppers didn't become known to the rest of the world. In this case, I just go, South America, here it is. Chili peppers did not become known to the rest of the world until after Columbus came to the Western Hemisphere in the 1490s. So if you practice enough, all you should need are the prompts. And I'm going to stop sharing and come back then to the PowerPoint. All right, so now we can finally start talking about delivery. Delivery is how we give the speech. It involves all the forms of nonverbal communication we use when we're speaking, whether it's public or conversational. So even when you're just having a conversation with somebody, you're just chatting, you use different kinds of delivery. And you might notice I use a lot of hand gestures when I talk to people. When I'm talking in class, lots of hand stuff. I use a lot of vocal variety to try to make things interesting, to keep people awake. Well, most people awake. If you were in class Tuesday, you know what I'm talking about. So when you're just reading a speech, and this is an actual kind of speech, which we're not doing in our class, but it's called a manuscript speech, the delivery can help you to be more interesting sounding, but it can also hinder it so it sounds like you're reading if you're just being mechanical. So when I look at the words and phrases on these slides, I try to make it sound interesting. The delivery with my hand gestures, the vocal variety, delivery can help to be interesting. See, I go up and then down, but I can also read it so it sounds like reading. Reading a speech, which is also called a manuscript speech, means that delivery can help it to be interesting or hinder it so it sounds like reading, and it could be mechanical. Nobody wants to hear 3 to 5 minutes of that. When you're doing impromptu speaking, though, Remember, that's the kind of speech where it's spontaneous. You don't really get a lot of preparation time. Delivery can help you sound more focused, but if you use bad delivery, it can make you sound like you haven't practiced and be unrehearsed. If you're talking real fast, if you use a lot of likes or ums, people they'll listen to you and say, she's not doing that great. But if you use a lot of good eye contact, use some good gestures, that will make you seem like you're very prepared, even though you haven't been. All right. Wow, this is the same thing we just said. Thank you. When we're talking about delivery, first of all, we need to talk about vocal qualities. And this includes the volume of your speech. Everybody should be able to hear what you're saying. So volume is important, but sometimes there might be parts of your speech where you want to speak loudly, or places where you want to speak quietly and really get people's attention by varying up the volume. When we talk about pitch, that talks about when we put words up high versus words down low. Sometimes, if we're asking a question, voice goes up, and when we answer it, the voice goes down. Inflection, which words are we focusing on? Which words are we focusing on? Which words are we focusing on? And all of that compared to like a monotone type of voice. A monotone type of voice really doesn't vary the pitch very much, doesn't vary the volume very much, and it doesn't have really any inflection. And it can be kind of boring. If I were to give a class like this for the 2 hours and 15 minutes that we have every Tuesday, I think after about 15, 20 minutes, most of y'all will be ready to walk out. So that's why I use a lot of pitch and inflection, and then the rate of speech that you speak, whether it's fast-paced or slow-paced. Sometimes you want to speak slowly so people understand what you're saying and see that there is an effect you want people to have. There is an impact to those words if you slow things down. Sometimes you want to speak really quickly and kind of adds some interest through being quick. And then pauses can be a lot of fun. It can be used to an interesting effect. If you ever hear a master speaker or a poet, sometimes they'll put a really interesting pause just somewhere makes you listen for what's coming next, and you're just right there with them. And somebody who uses all of these things together, varying volume, varying the pitch, varying the rate, and putting pauses in, it's just so interesting. Now with pauses, we can tell when it's purposeful and when it's not. So sometimes an unexpected pause can signal unpreparedness, right? So you don't want to just stop and go because you don't know what you're doing. If you're going to do a pause, make sure it's meaningful. There is also a thing called a vocalized pause. A vocalized pause is when people say or like, or it's words that are basically taking the place of a pause that lets you kind of space things out while your brain figures out what you're saying next. And you never really know how many times you say like, or and, or or know what I mean, or whatever, until you start giving speeches and you try to stop saying so many likes or ands and Trust me, we all go through it. While you're listening to yourself practice, if you find yourself saying like, just know we're hearing that too. And we will notice, you will notice. So this is as good a time as any to work on, even outside of our class, reducing the number of vocalized pauses you give in your everyday speech. I do them myself. You'll hear me say, when suddenly I'm trying to think of something and I go, okay. Everybody does it. But if you're just having a regular conversation, you're like, well, see, I said like, and then I threw in a like. And there's an we do them all the time. And while we're practicing good speech delivery, it's important that we reduce them. So when we mix everything up, in a positive way, not so much the vocalized pauses and not so much the unprepared pauses. That is what we call vocal variety, and it's awesome. So when we're speaking the words, there are three things we also need to pay attention to. One is pronunciation. We need to make sure that all the words we're saying we are pronouncing correctly. There is nothing worse than listening to a speech from someone, and it's a good speech until they get to a word that they haven't looked up how to pronounce properly, and they pronounce it incorrectly. And you know how it's supposed to be pronounced, but then all you're thinking to yourself is, he didn't pronounce that right. And if they keep saying it again and again, all you're going to think is, ugh, that's keeps mispronouncing the word. Why is it mispronounced? I mean, and you're not focusing on the speech. All you can think about is how that word is mispronounced. So make sure if there's a word you're unfamiliar with, make sure you find out how to correctly say the word, how to correctly pronounce the word. Articulation is how precisely you say the words. We have a lot in our society today of people who kind of mumble and slur the words. You know what I'm saying, guys? And I'm not doing a very good job of it right now, but we want to be able to understand all the words that you're saying. Now, when I'm home talking to my husband, you know, I'm going to put my words together. Hey, what you doing? How you doing? You know, throwing all the words, they're going to just go right into one another. But when I'm talking in class or when I'm giving a presentation, if I'm at work, I'm going to be more particular with how I say the words that I'm saying. And that is we're going to be articulating more. So when you're at home, you know, maybe you want to articulate your words more. You don't have to. If you slur when you're talking to your friends and you're perfectly fine with that, awesome. When we give a speech, we want to be more precise and articulate well. And then dialect is an interesting thing because it's got pros and cons. On one hand, I don't want you to not sound like yourself. And if you grew up in the South and you have a Southern accent, if you grew up in the Northeast and you have what we like to lovingly call a Yankee accent, or if you grew up in the Midwest and you sound like a Midwesterner, that's you and your voice. I don't want you to try to get rid of your accent. But if it prevents you from speaking clearly and it prevents people from understanding what you're saying or taking you seriously as a critical speaker, then it might be worth working on. Now, like I said, I don't expect you to get rid of your accent for our speeches, but I do want you to try to focus more on articulating your words, pronouncing things properly, and thinking about how you're saying what you're going to be saying. All right, so we talked about your voice, how you're going to speak the words. Now we're going to talk about how your physical body moves when you give a speech. Now, I don't expect you to be like me and just all over the place, but your body is important for your nonverbal communication. It includes your appearance. I do not expect you to wear a suit or a dress or look fancy, look professional, but how you do dress and present yourself does convey the respect that you're giving to the event of presenting a speech and the respect that you have for your audience. So think about that. Now, for our class, I just want you to be presentable. But if you're giving a speech to a community group, you probably don't want to show up in short shorts and flip-flops, hair all raggedy, and looking like you just rolled out of bed. That just kind of shows disrespect for the occasion and for yourself and for the audience. For our class, I don't want you to be, like I said, super dressed up, but I do want you to understand that this is for a grade and put your best effort forward, or at least look like you're going to put your best effort forward. So how you dress is important. how you move your whole body. Remember, we want to talk to people throughout the room, and we don't want to just move your eyes, but you will have to kind of turn and engage with the different parts of the room. Now, for your presentation, this isn't going to be so much when you're doing it through your camera and you're recording it, because we got audiences like right there. So I'm not going to expect you to be like, hey, moving your body for no reason. But when we are doing in-person speeches, I do expect you to kind of notice people and speak to them. Make sure everybody knows that they are encompassed as part of your audience. And it's kind of interesting. If you look out into the audience and they look back at you and you see that they're actually listening to what you're saying, it gives you kind of a calmer, more confident feeling. So being sure that you do look at the audience and you do maneuver yourself towards them, that's actually very helpful to you in giving your speech. Sometimes if you're on a huge stage, you want to walk from one side maybe to the middle, to another side, to the middle, gesturing as you go. So it depends. In a small situation like our classroom, I don't expect you all to walk around unless you're doing some sort of demonstration or you feel like walking around. But in some circumstances, walking around a stage or around a conference room might be a good thing to do. Now, gestures involve what you do with your hands and your arms. Make them organic, make them natural. Don't, make them unnatural, just feeling like I must move my hands while I talk because I have to gesture. Make them natural. Make it like if you're talking in a conversation, sometimes you'll just put your hands up. If you're not so active and moving, just try it out a little bit, see how it works. But they do need to be organic and natural. If you're holding your cards, hold with one hand, use your other hand to gesture, or put your cards down, use your hands, flip your cards over, use both your hands. It can also involve your head. The facial expressions we use can do a lot to convey what we think about what we're saying, how much we enjoy the topic that we're talking about, and how much we want to connect with the audience members. So when you're giving your speech, you want your face to be pleasant, but also engaged with the audience so that they know you're connecting with them. They are connecting back with you, and you're feeding back. They're giving feedback, you're giving feedback. Facial gestures do a lot with that. Eye contact goes along with the whole movement situation. You do want to look at people's eyes. Some people are like, oh, it's going to make me so nervous if I'm looking at people. Trust me, it actually helps when you see that they're listening to what you're saying because you're looking at their eyes. They feel they're connecting with you. You feel that you're connecting with them. And it actually does help calm you down. Try it. Trust me. I do know what I'm talking about. So continuing delivery. When we're giving speeches online, there are some special things. One, remember the head and shoulders shot. That's what I want you to do for our speech, for your informative speech, the first one. See how I am in the camera right here? You can see my head and my shoulders. And then I've got space. I've got a little bit of space above my head, space around me, just a little bit. But it looks like, one of those news anchors on TV kind of a thing. Some people will do speeches where you see their whole body, on camera. And news people do that too. They're standing like by a green screen, you see their whole body. You can do that, but for our purposes, what we're going to do is the head and shoulders shot. Number two, and we've already been practicing this, look at the camera, not at the screen, because if I'm looking at myself on the screen right now, I'm looking like this, or if I'm looking at my screen, I'm looking down here. It doesn't look like I'm looking at you all at all. So make sure you look at your camera. If you have to look down at your notes, look back. This is where your eye contact needs to be focused. That's how you're going to give eye contact in an online speech, is you're going to do eye contact. And if you need to put some googly eyes right by your camera to kind of be like, eye contact. That's perfectly legit. You can still use your speaking outline. So if you've got your note cards and see, look, I've got down here, you can't see them. You can still do that. And I will see, like, if you start moving around, even if it's down here, you can kind of see, I'm gesturing a little bit, my hands will come up. It'll work. I will notice that you are gesturing. I will notice that you are moving and that you are keeping eye contact. It'll be fine. I want you to dress and give good delivery as if you were in person. So don't wear your pajamas. Make an effort. Like I said, I don't want you to be fancy, but I do want you to look respectful, as if you were in class. Otherwise, we're all going to look like, wow, they just kind of, you could tell they recorded this at 11 o'clock a Sunday night, the last thing they thought of. Gee. And that is disrespectful to your audience. They want to see you. I want to see you. So give it some thought. All right. I keep saying practice, 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 more practice. It's the most important thing you can do to improve. It really is. Now, the first thing you have to do is write your speech with enough time that you can practice. So if you start writing the outline to your speech like Friday night, or I'm sorry, Friday morning, because it's due Friday night, remember? Oh, but I have had students, you know, it'll be due at 11:59. And about 6 o'clock at night, I'll get a text going, is there any chance for an extension? I'm like, what's the reason? Can't think of anything. Then the answer is no, sorry. You got a medical emergency, you got family emergency. I might consider it, but otherwise, nah, it's due in 5 hours. So they start throwing things together. It takes them like 2 or 3 hours to get all the sources they need, to get the information. They write it, they put it in a thrown together outline. And trust me, I can tell that it's been thrown together. And then they have, 2 hours left that they can practice it a little bit and then do it. But most of the time they're just like, I just want to get it done. So they just kind of read it while they do it. And they're, okay, I've turned something in. You know, nobody wants to see that. We can tell that you threw it together. So do the writing, do the outlining early enough next week so that you can get everything written, put it in good shape, sleep on it, and then like the next day, practice some more the next day, practice some more the next day. So after our Tuesday class, I would make sure everything is written and ready to go by that Wednesday. Then you've got Thursday and Friday to practice it. Friday afternoon, you can record it, pop it up. Now, some people do have work. I know how that is. So this weekend, you possibly could get it written, get your outline written so that sometime next week you have to work, but then you can practice it, get everything up by Friday, whatever the scheduling needs to happen so that you get everything written in advance and you have plenty of time to practice. That's how you need to do. If you don't have an audience, and you can put together, like it says here, a test audience, family, friends, cats, you know, someone to watch you give your speech so that you can practice looking at them and getting eye contact. You don't necessarily have to get feedback from them. How did I do? Just practice talking in front of somebody. That is very helpful sometimes. But I find that watching yourself in a mirror when you practice your speech, or, you know, do your speech, record it, then stop the video, then watch it, and then see, okay, how do I look? Am I speaking with enough vocal variety? Can you tell, does it look like I'm reading my notes? Is there something I could be doing better? Ooh, I said like 17 times in my speech. That can give you some good feedback so you can practice a little more before you record it again. So watch yourself doing it. Do a video, like a prep or a draft, a first draft of your video. That can be very helpful. And then, like I said, if while you're recording your speech, you feel like, ooh, this is not going well, just stop, take a couple breaths, have a couple of sips of something, and then just do it again. That's one of the great things about recording your first speech, is that, you know, no matter how weird or badly you think it's going, you can always stop it and start over again. Now, that can also be kind of a weird issue, because I do know a lot of people who No matter how they do it, it's just not going to be good enough. And they will do it again and again and again and again and again and again. And they will have tried to record it for 3 hours and it's still not good. And they're just making themselves crazy trying to get it done perfectly. Don't worry about getting it done perfectly. Try to get it done as well as you can. Give it your best effort. Don't try to be perfect because, I mean, you've seen me do this video today. It has not been perfect. If I were grading myself for today's video, I would have taken off for a lot of things. So just do your best. Remember, half of your grade comes from delivery. So put your outline together as well as you can and know that at least that half of the grade should be awesome. That should help a lot with you feeling more confident. Okay, I just have to do well enough for the second half of my grade. And then give yourself some credit, have some fun, record yourself, make sure it's good, put the YouTube link on your outline, upload it to Moodle. Phew, done. It's not even 11:59 yet on Friday night. Thank goodness. All right, so don't forget, the informative speech outline example is in Moodle on our page in week 4. If you need to see it so you can match things up with your own outline, it is in there. I'm going to stop sharing and remind you, you can call, you can text, you can email. If you have any questions, have any problems, I am happy to help. I might not get back to you immediately because like you all, I do have another job on the side, but I will call or email or text you as soon as I can. I'm here to help you. I'm so looking forward to seeing your first speeches. I can't wait. In the meantime, we do have next Tuesday's class coming up. Please come to class on Tuesday. We're going to talk more about the speeches, making sure you're absolutely on the right path to an A. And we're going to start talking about the next 2 speeches we have to do because we have to jump right into them. And then we have a test coming up. We're going to talk about that as well. So many things happening in these last 4 weeks of class. Hang on, buckle up, buckaroos, we can do it. And I think a lot of you have a total opportunity to get an A. Just got to keep chugging along. So contact me if you need to. Otherwise, I will see you in class on Tuesday. No remote exercises are due this weekend. Woo! So thank you. I'll see you on Tuesday. Have a great weekend.